everybody. My name's Dave Jackson, and this is Tales from the Backlog, a video games podcast where I bring in guests to talk about the games we play. My guest today is Nave, who is a friend of the show, a possible robot in human skin, and co-host of the Gaming Together podcast. What's up, dude?
How's it going, man?
It's good to have you on the show. We've chatted a little bit before, and it's good to talk to you.
Heck yeah, man. I've been trying to get you on the show too. It's really hard with all of these. There's so many different like interweaving schedules going on at this point. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And I assume we're in like completely opposite time zones too. Like I'm over in Asia on Asian time, so like it's the middle of the afternoon right now, and it's God knows what time it is for you right now. So
That was the scariest thing because whenever I picked this time slot, I didn't look at the AM. So when you sent me the Zencaster link, I was like, dang, he did that really early. And then I looked at the time and I saw that 12 a.m. was in like 3 minutes. And I was like, oh, AM, PM. Okay, I better get out of
yeah.
better get out of this game. I'm glad I
Yeah.
wasn't like playing Siege or something.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you on the show anyway. And like I said, you're one of the two co hosts of the Gaming Together podcast. So before we get into talking about our game for today, why don't you just tell my listeners what is Gaming Together all about?
Well, I am the eclectic crazy person half of our podcast. We play co-op games, we review them, we kind of talk crap about them. We really just ramble for about 40 minutes before we even get into the games. I'm sorry because in case your listeners aren't used to the rambling, because I will just go off on tangents, accident, and I won't even know that. That's kind of I'm like a perpetual penny on the railroad tracks. I've heard from a friend, so that's what I bring to the table.
Cool. And so like if you've listened to my show, or people listening, if you've listened for like more than a few episodes, you know how much I dislike co-op gaming because of the scheduling and everything like that, just trying to line up schedules. And like the idea that you guys do an entire podcast of all co-op games, I'm like, props to you guys for making this work. Cause like I could barely play through It Takes Two, and that takes like 10 hours to play. It took me a couple months to play through that. So props to you guys.
Oh, it's been a disaster the last month, actually. We have been butting heads because we have desperately been trying to get through Elden Ring, and then we try to record on Sunday, and our podcast episodes come up on Friday, but we'll get to Thursday, and we're like, okay, we're not gonna make it. We need to play something. What can we play? World of Tanks. You know World of Tanks, right, Nave? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll play a few matches, and I'll just carry the episode. And that's been the last like 4 episodes, unfortunately. I'm sorry for all of our listeners, but we've been really trying to beat Elden Ring.
The bad thing about those FromSoft games is like if you're interested in progress or trophies or anything like that, you have to co-op it twice because you can do it in your buddy's
Hmm.
game, and then he has to come into your game and do it too if you're interested in like actually both files beating the game. So
Yeah.
um
The
I
unfortunate thing, the good thing about this in this game is that you can respec like your character,
right.
and we just went through that because I was gonna say my friend Philip, but my co-host, he was playing more like a Faith, or I don't know what he was doing. He was doing like bleed and dagger stuff, but he was
Hmm.
very squishy. And I'm just a really thick boy. All of these games, I play big shield, big weapon. I'm as thick as possible because
Right.
I don't know how to parry and I don't know how to dodge. So that's how I compensate. But he
Hmm.
just recently switched kind of to my build because he's having such a hard time when he's the host staying
Right.
alive. So
Yeah, that's man. I mean, I like the like casual drop in, drop out co-op stuff in those games, but yeah, playing through the whole game with someone else, that's a long ass game too. Like I said, like I
oh
could
man.
barely get through like Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons playing co-op. Like that took me and my wife like a couple weeks to play through it. Just like, you want to play? Nah, not really. Okay, well, maybe tomorrow. You want to play? Uh, not right now. Jesus Christ. So like props to you guys, and I enjoy listening to your show. I especially loved listening to the Pokemon Nuzlocke episode that came up somewhat recently, like at the time of recording here. I love listening to people's Nuzlocke experiences and the way that you guys made that into a co-op experience. You know, that's a single player thing. You guys kind of
Yeah.
found a way for it to be co-op. That was really, really interesting. So I recommend everyone listening to the show go check out the Gaming Together podcast. Check the show notes for links for that. today we're going to talk about Unsighted, which is a kind of top down isometric Metroidvania action game. A lot of different genres being mashed up here. Developed by Studio Pixel Punk and published by Humble Games in 2021. And an elevator pitch, and this is what hooked me on this game. The elevator pitch for Unsighted is it is an action game with some Souls-like, some Zelda, some Metroidvania, and a really interesting ticking time mechanic where every character is on a timer. Every character's life is on a timer. And as soon as I heard that with those other genres that I like, I was into this. So we can get into our kind of histories with this game. What what made you want to play Unsighted?
Mostly it was recommendations from other podcasters that I trust, like people who I know have very similar tastes in games as me.
Right.
Whenever I saw what the game was, I was unfortunately because I have a very I have a pretty wide wedge in the games genres that I'm proficient at, but unfortunately this game falls outside of almost all of it. Um, so I when I watched gameplay of this game, I was like, "Ooh, I might be bad at this." This is why I didn't play it for so long. And whenever you brought it up, I was like, "Perfect. I'm just gonna play this game for this show, and I'm just gonna do it poorly, and maybe that'll be funnier that way." Because this game is co-op, but it's only local co-op. You can't play this game online
Okay.
or anything. But you can summon in like an extra character to fight with you. I actually didn't get to experience that, but I forgot why I even brought that up, but that's an interesting tidbit. It's a
Yeah.
co-op game a little bit.
And I didn't even know that because of my aforementioned like dislike of doing co-op stuff. So good to know everyone listening. You can play this co-op apparently.
And I'm pretty sure it's like drop in, drop out. You just press the start button and then it's like press A on the second controller and they come in kind of
Oh, sick. Yeah, even better.
like Streets of Rage or whatever.
Right on. For me, I I think I saw this on a couple of YouTube channels that were doing like, hidden gems of 2021 or something like that, or like, top 5 indie hidden gems you haven't played. And I like to watch videos like that to see new stuff. And I think it was this channel called First Five um, that did like a whole video about Unsighted. And then Iron Pineapple, who's a pretty well known Souls YouTube guy, I think Souls YouTuber, included this in one of their like really good Souls likes you've never heard of videos where they go through like just like they go trawling at the bottom of the Steam things for all games tagged Souls like and just play all those weird games. This was in there though, and Iron Pineapple really liked it, so I put it on my wish list, waited for a sale as I do, and it was really, like I said, it was that time mechanic that really hooked me on like trying Unsighted. So gave it a shot. And I think this game is sometimes very cool and sometimes very frustrating. To get into some like opening thoughts here, I went on like wild swings between being like, I fucking hate this game. And then sometimes where I was like, this is really cool what they're doing here. It's very, like, I love this idea. It's just like about half and half. I think I actually texted you, Nave, and I was like, man, I fucking hate this game. Do you want to like maybe talk about something else? But then I kind of pushed through that part that I didn't like. And I ended up enjoying the ending more than I liked the middle. I actually think the beginning and the end of this game are really fun. And I really didn't like the middle section of it. So just a little opening thoughts there, and we'll talk about why. How about you? Like a little just kind of opening thoughts about Unsighted here?
I was really curious what part you were referring to whenever you because I played the game probably for about an hour whenever we first settled on this game, and then I put it down for like a month and a half because we
Right.
scheduled this pretty far in advance. And
Hmm.
whenever you had messaged me that you were having trouble, and then you were like, "Okay, I'm gonna pick this game back up. It's fine." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, maybe I should start playing this game again." Like at this point, because the time is getting closer. And I too got hysterically stuck to the point of frustration and rage quit in 3 different play sessions. So now I'm thinking I wonder if we got stuck in the same place maybe. But we had the same arc. At the beginning I was really high, middle I was very aggravated, and then at the end I was just roaming free. And we can talk about, because I'm sure you know why I we probably had similar reasons why we were having fun at the end especially. But
Yeah, for sure.
we can get into the next part if you want.
Yeah. So those are some opening thoughts. And before we get into like breaking down this game, I do want to give the Tales from the Backlog spoiler policy, which is we will do our best to avoid all spoilers, all big spoilers for the game until we warn you later in the episode. So there will be a spoiler wall at some point in the episode. Check the show notes. There will be a timestamp for the spoiler wall. Listen up until then and do not worry about spoilers. We will not go there yet. So let's get into Unsighted. Getting into like what makes Unsighted kind of special. And I want to start with the story setup just to give a little context for who you are and what you're doing in this game. In this game, you play as a cyborg. They call them automatons in the game. I am not going to say the word automaton every single time throughout this podcast. I'm going to say cyborg or robot. Your name is Alma, who wakes up in a kind of war torn, futuristic world with amnesia. It's another amnesiac game where you're discovering your character's past. In the kind of backstory of the game, a meteor hit the Earth containing a big source of energy called anima, which the robots use to sustain their life. But humans, as greedy as we are, decided to attack the robots in order to use the anima for themselves. So the key thing for this game is if a robot runs out of anima and doesn't get any for like some period of time, they go unsighted. That's the name of the game, Unsighted. And that means they kind of go feral and they turn hostile like robot zombies or something like that. Think of it that way. So, more on this later because this is the game's kind of killer mechanic, I think. You have a very Legend of Zelda quest in this game. As Alma, you need to travel to these 5 places to collect these meteor shards in order to forge a weapon that is strong enough to defeat these kind of alien eldritch monsters that the humans have sent to kill the robots. So that's your goal. Go get these 5 meteor shards, learn about your past, forge this weapon so that you can kill these things. I think the story in this game basically disappears throughout the middle of the game, and you get a lot of cool stuff at the end, which again we'll save for the spoilers section. That stuff at the end, I think, though, is very cool, but you do have to play a while just learning about backstory um, without any
Mhm.
real satisfying story stuff, I think. And I should have said earlier, this is not a long game. My playthrough took me 8 hours. I assume, Nave, yours was similar.
I think I actually took a picture of it and sent it to a friend. It's
I
right
think you
here.
sent it
So
to
yeah,
me.
my
Yeah.
game. Oh yeah, I also sent it to you. It was 6 hours and 59 minutes, so almost right on the dot of 7.
Yeah, not a long game. So like when we say you have to wait a while for some satisfying story stuff, it's not you're not waiting 40 hours for this. It's an 8-hour game. So, Nave, without spoilers, did you enjoy the story in this game?
I'm gonna be honest. At first, I was like kind of open to the all of like everything that was going on. I was like, I wonder where this is going to go. But when I start to get frustrated with a game, sometimes I take it out on the entirety of the game.
Uh-huh.
And once the second play session, I couldn't figure out why I was still stuck, and I quit. I was like, my brain just Jedi erased everything out of my brain. And ever since then, I was kind of resentful to all of these characters that I was because I would run around just talking to people, hoping maybe someone would offhandedly say something that, kind of like how these Zelda like games are. Like occasionally there are NPCs standing around that will give you information for what you need in your quest. This game does not have any of that.
Mhm.
And so, uh, and on top of that, this game has, like you said, a lot of websites were putting this on like hidden gem lists. A lot of podcasts and stuff like that are saying this is a hidden gem. Go play this game. This game is interesting and it's very fun. But since nobody is playing this game, when you Google where is this item in
Yeah.
Unsighted, then you get zero results. And the
Uh-huh.
only thing you have are like 5 hour long playthroughs with 200 views and no timestamps. And so it's like, I don't know if I want to watch that.
I definitely did scrub through some Let's Plays on YouTube trying to find out, like, how the fuck do I get into this building? And you're right. I searched, like, you know, unsighted how to enter X building, and it was nothing. Just like you said, like some dude put up some 5-hour Let's Play, and I just literally had to scrub through it until I started seeing things that didn't look familiar. And then, yeah,
Mm.
not the most fun. And I totally am with you. I don't remember anything from like the middle section of this game when I was really frustrated. I don't remember what the story was saying. I think I came out of the game with a good understanding of like the backstory and stuff like that. But man, whatever happened between Meteor Shards 2 and 4, I have no fucking idea because I was real mad at the game during that time.
We were stuck in the exact same place.
Yep.
Okay,
Good.
I think okay. Let's continue then.
Yeah. So I again listen into the spoiler section if you listen to or if you played the game or if you don't care about spoilers. I think this game has some cool story moments at the end. Like at the very end of the game, you start getting some like, whoa, didn't see that coming. You start getting some stuff like that. But until then, it's yeah, kind of forgettable, I think.
And there's some good characterization and like a good relationship, like good character arcs. There's all a lot of that, but towards in the middle of the game, like none of that is explored. So if you're looking for that, it's going to be beginning and end, uh, kind of like a reverse hamburger. If you like the meats at the beginning and the end.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You again, you get some cool stuff at the beginning, you get some very cool stuff at the end, and I was too frustrated to internalize anything during the middle. So, let's get into kind of mechanically what makes this game stand out. Starting with the time mechanic, which I talked about earlier, but like within the story of the game, if these robots go without this substance called anima for too long, um, they kind of go feral or zombified. They call it going unsighted. And when I say every robot, I mean every robot in the game, including the main character. And I didn't test it. I didn't check on YouTube. I should have checked like what happens if you let yourself run out of time because it I can see it being possible. There's a way to get around it. We'll talk about that in a bit. But this also extends to like you have a fairy robot, not unlike Navi in Ocarina of Time, that follows you around. The fairy is very, very helpful. I like the fairy a lot, but the fairy will run out of time if you don't give it anima. And that goes for all the NPCs too. And so you find these items called meteor dust around the world, and they are very limited and you can give one to an NPC to add 25 game hours onto their clock. And 25 game hours is not that long. I would say it's about, an hour of real time, like 45 minutes of real time. It's not that long.
I think a minute is a second. So it would be every hour is 60 seconds.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Because I definitely had lots of, and you get like this contact list in the game of all your NPCs, and it will show how much time they have remaining. And so by the end of the game, I would say 2/3 of the NPCs in my game had gone unsighted because you do not get enough meteor dust to save everybody, and you do have to prioritize who you give it to because like your merchants will go unsighted, and then suddenly there's no more upgrading your weapons if the blacksmith goes unsighted, stuff like that. So you do have to prioritize who you give this to, and this is kind of like this killer mechanic for this game. Should say there's also a mode you can turn this off if this stresses you out too much. They tell you in a message at the beginning, but this is the intended way, and I think the game is balanced pretty well for this too. So, what was your
Mm.
experience with this time system, Nave?
So you said about 2/3 of your characters went unsighted. I would say probably I'm pretty close to that as well. About half, at least half of my characters,
Yeah,
everyone that I had met had uh, gone nuts, and I'm like, a lot of my frustration was with this mechanic. Not
really?
that I
Okay.
thought it was bad,
Hmm.
but every moment that I was stuck and didn't know what to do, I was painfully aware, even more so than normal, that I was
Oh,
wasting time, you
yeah.
know?
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of a person like when I'm playing a competitive game and the match isn't going well, in my brain I'm thinking I have to go to work in 9 hours, and I'm spending 30 minutes in this game. Like that's where my
Right.
brain goes. So I have that on top of I'm about to lose my blacksmith. If I just need to get out of this place if I can,
Hmm.
just so that um but other than that, I thought it was really interesting, and it makes the game very existential. Especially if like the implications of that. Just thinking about you have the ability to save somebody's life, but not for permanently. It's a very temporary solution, and you do not have enough for everyone. It's kind of like a Walking Dead situation, where you're or like what is that game? It's gone. I don't know what it's called anymore. But yeah, it's very interesting. And this game took 8 hours for you, 7 hours for me, but we both got stuck. And I'm sure that if somebody didn't get stuck, even in a first playthrough, maybe 3 to 4 hours, you're not going to lose too many people. Some people might have a different experience than we did. I think it's very cool that we had like the same experience where we just had to watch our merchants vanish into the aether. But
Hmm.
other than that, I did not give anyone dust. I felt really weird about that towards the end, but I hoarded it to myself, and I don't know what that says about me. I also gave it to my Navi fairy. I didn't let my fairy
Right.
die, which is interesting because that's the only character that's persistently with you.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if it was because I was just so attached to this character or because it was convenient. I didn't have to go anywhere to give that person dust. I could just give it to him from my inventory. It may be just it may be just be a little bit of column A and column B. But did you give other characters? You don't have to name names, but did you give any other characters the dust?
Okay. Yes, and this is something I forgot to put in the notes, and you just reminded me. There's another use for meteor dust. When you start the game, you can only heal one time. It's like Dark Souls, and you have one Estus flask. And in this game, you start out with one. There's a character you can give meteor dust to increase the number of times you can heal. And I did that twice. I think I ended the game with three healing uses, but they take a lot of meteor dust. So I
You
used
you
quite a
just
bit on
reminded me of
that.
that as well.
Yeah. And I gave some to the fairy. I gave some once I thought I was like near the end of the game. There were a couple characters I was just like, you know what? You're cool. You can have some. But I did lose my blacksmith. I did lose. There's a traveling merchant that goes around. I did lose them, and lots of
RFP.
others. Yeah, and the thing too, like when an NPC goes unsighted, they will attack you, and you have to kill them. If you go into like, let's say it's a shopkeeper, and you go into their shop after they go unsighted, they'll attack you, and you have to kill them. So that was kind of like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. I have like this, oh, this combat master who's teaching me how to parry earlier in the game, and now they're unsighted, and I have to kill them when I go in their building. That's not great, but um, I thought this system was really cool. And what you were describing when you're lost and you know that time is ticking, and you'll start to get messages that says like your fairy bot has 24 hours to live, which again, not that long. It's like a half hour. When you're lost, you do start to feel that pressure. And this is like the opposite problem of all those open world games where like the world is ending soon, but you're fucking off and, fishing forever or something like that. It's the complete opposite thing in this game where you're like, I could go explore there, but I do not have time to go do that. I need to focus on this task. And I think that's cool. in a Metroidvania where you're supposed to be exploring, I'm not sure that it works as well as they want, but I did like it more than I got frustrated. And like there were all these times where I had these moments where it was like this sweet old lady in the village, she's going unsighted in 2 hours, but I just like I can't, I have 2 meteor dusts and I just can't give it to you. I'm sorry, old lady. And there were a couple times like that where I was like, "Ooh, I don't feel good about this." But, got to be practical.
You reminded me when you mentioned the shopkeepers. I lied. I did give somebody else meteor dust, and it was so at the point when I was frustrated and confused, I became convinced that I needed a key
Mhm.
to unlock a door that I think I might. So all of the keys, it's like Zelda when you get just a key, you get in a dungeon, you can use that key to open up a door. But in this game, you could take the keys out of the dungeon and then go somewhere else and open up a door with that same key from that you got from the dungeon. But now you don't have a key for that dungeon.
Yeah,
So
not great.
there's a shopkeeper that sells them for like 9,000 bucks, which is a lot in
Yeah.
this game, especially not at the end, but especially in the first 2/3 of the game, you're scrounging for money for the most part. And so I was Googling, I was like, is there any way to get a key other than this? And the only thing I could find was if you give a shopkeeper meteor dust, it lowers their prices. And you can do that
Yep.
4 times. And so I gave them 4 meteor dusts, and it was like 75,000, which is still way too much. I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna be able to. I, I ran around killing monsters, and I killed like a whole zone of monsters, and I got like $750, and I'm just like, I'm never going to be able to afford this.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna die.
For sure. It the shopkeepers they'll all do something special for you once you give them, I think, like you said, like 3 or 4 meteor dusts. Like, there's a crafting system in this game. You have to craft at these crafting tables. If you give the crafting merchant 4 meteor dusts, they'll give you a mobile crafting table, so you can do it anywhere, including in the middle of boss fights, which was handy, so I'm glad I did give them some meteor dust. Oh, one more thing about the time system. There is an NPC, it's kind of hidden, and I'm not sure if the game will direct you to them or not because I found it before I got like a notice from the game about it, but there's an NPC that will kill another NPC and give you that NPC's time. So like cuz your main character has a ticking clock and you will get to a point where it's like your main character has 100 hours to live, which is again, not that long. So there's an NPC you can meet where he will give you the list of other NPCs in the game and say like, choose one, I'll go kill them and I will give you their time. So like I did that one time and I felt horrible. Like I picked someone who doesn't sell anything, someone who is, functionally useless to me as a person. And I was like, this person has 300 hours left. Go kill them. I want that time. And then I didn't have to worry about time for Alma for the rest of the game. But I felt real bad about that. And my fairy friend kind of gave me some shit like, hey, what happened in there? And Alma's like, I don't want to talk about it. So,
That's really interesting because I did get at some point. I don't know how what procced it, but I did get a little mission pip that said it was like, "Hey, I heard you need help with your time situation. I have a solution for that." And it
right.
gave me a little map marker, but I never went to it because I was like, "Well, I have like 18 meteor dust because I'm only giving it to
Right.
myself." So I mean, like I wasn't worried about it. At that point I didn't know about the extra syringes you can get, which is interesting too because that's some really morally gray shit, like assassinating people and taking their
Yeah.
their time on this earth. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I would have actually experienced that. There, the character that gives you syringes, I don't remember what's going on with her because, like I said, I kind of Jedi mind tricked myself to forgetting everything. But I vaguely remember that this character is kind of exiled from the rest of the communities. This character's off on her own, like away from everyone. And when you enter her house, there's like a bunch of really weird sciency vats. There's a lot of woo woo going on in there, and it's like it's implied that the way that she's giving you these extra syringes is like unethical in some way.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember. I don't know if it's unethical because you're giving her a bunch of meteor dust that could be saving people just for the personal gain of healing yourself a little more.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's it or if that's
Yeah.
the implication,
I'm not
but
sure either.
that's an interest. There's a lot of like moral ambiguity, and especially in a game where you, like we said, can save people's lives, and for the most part, you're choosing not to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where it's like you're right, it is kind of like a kind of post-apocalyptic kinda trope where, like, someone has supplies that could save another person's life, but they're like, "Sorry, I can't." Like, I or like you when you're like, "I man, you have 18 of these meteor dust, just, like, give me 1." And you're like, "Nah, sorry, no can do."
Well, in my head, I was rationalizing it like I'm gonna save the world, man. I need this. I don't know what I'm going to fight up there. I didn't know if I was ever gonna need like you sacrifice some meteor dust to open a door to do something else. Which never. Well, I guess that's just kind of a swoop. It never really comes up, but
Yeah. So, that's the time system. Again, I think it's cool. It's a very cool idea. I've never really like come across something like this in another game that I've played, especially not one where like your main character can run out of time or like your companion fairy can run out of time and stuff like that. So it's cool. I think this works. And this would be this is the thing that hooked me on the game, and it's the thing that I will say, like, I think this works if you're interested in this game. Like, this is the reason you should try this over some other kind of, Zelda like, Metroidvania like, something like. I think this does make this game stand out pretty well. It's cool.
the time mechanic made me think of this might be kind of silly, but there's this arcade game called Gauntlet Legends
Hmm.
where your health is always ticking down, and it's just a reason to make you have to put more quarters in, so that even if you're doing really well, you still have to put quarters in because you're gonna die eventually.
Right.
But that was because everyone's just constantly dying, starving to death, and that ever since I was a child, I always think about that all the time. Every
Hmm.
time I'm hungry, I think about Warrior needs food badly, so can't help it.
Yeah. So this is a kind of Metroidvania Zelda mashup in like the way that the world is designed and stuff like that, and like your kind of progression through the game. You get in each temple, like not unlike a Zelda game, or like, oh, it's either in each temple or like leading up to each dungeon. There are 5 of them. You'll get some kind of upgrade. Like, I mean, there is actually a hook shot in this game. It's called a hook shot too. So, wearing their influences on their sleeve here. You'll also find stuff like ways to cross water and just other upgrades to help you get around. You eventually get a double hook shot and stuff like that. And so this is like it's very Zelda like when you're inside of these dungeons. You're basically solving puzzles in each room for either how to get across the room, or you'll get like a kind of combat wave challenge in order to get, a key or some other kind of treasure. And then there's a boss at the end of each temple. So, also, Zelda influences, you do get that fairy bot. The fairy bot is cool. It's actually good. It's not annoying like the ones in the N64 Zelda games, I think. And you can also get a dog. I named my dog Ruki
Oh my god.
because my real dog's name is Ruki, and the dog is very helpful and super fucking annoying because the dog
Yes.
will pester you to take naps, and taking a nap means losing time. So eventually, my dog got sick of me, and I have a screenshot where I tried to go like interact with the dog, and it said Ruki doesn't like you anymore. And I was like, oh shit, that's my dog. And then he ran away after that. He said, fuck you, Dave, I'm out. And yeah, so you're going through these things. You've got your fairy bot, maybe you've got a dog, and solving puzzles and stuff like that. So, how do you feel this works as a kind of, it feels very Zelda to me. How do you feel about it?
I was also getting the Zelda vibes. You brought up the hook shot, but you also have you have the stand-in for the boomerang, which is what is it, the shuriken.
Yeah.
You have the ice grenades, which make platforms. You have the bombs, which can open up doors. Later on, you get the spinner, which can also destroy rocks. It also helps you traverse on rails,
Mhm.
kind of like Tony Hawk.
Yep.
Or I was thinking of Sonic. I didn't want to mention Sonic Adventure, but I mean, I already did now. So, but the dog is amazing for the first few hours. You have to feed it and you have to take naps. Losing that time is pretty significant, but at the beginning that dog actually fights with you, which I thought was very awesome.
Yeah.
And once you get your fairy robot to 4 hearts, your fairy also fights with you. So you get a significant DPS boost to the point where you, and also you don't even have to do anything. They just kind of fight uh autonomously, if
Mhm.
you will. No
Yeah.
pun intended. But they're pretty cool until you become way stronger than them and they're no longer needed. My dog also ran away. I named it Scrap. What kind of dog did you find? Because I found like a Shiba, I think it was.
Yeah, I think the first one I found was like a Shiba or something like that, and that one I named Rookie. He got mad at me and ran away, and then I found a
Yeah,
poodle later in the game, and the poodle I named Rookie 2, and he stayed with me until the end of the game.
I did not. I heard dogs whining, but I never went and searched for them. For the most part, I was ready to get done with this game until a certain point in
Right.
which I decided to play a whole lot. But so I just stopped with all of the side content. Once my dog ran away, I was already at the point where I was way too strong for it anyway. So I wasn't really missing the DPS and the time hit. That time hit was significant towards losing half of the NPCs in the whole game.
Right.
That dog wanted to sleep all the time.
Yeah, because you get like these, on your list, it'll say like these NPCs have 24 hours to live, and your dog wants to take a nap. And I think a nap takes like 3 hours or something like that. And you're
Yeah.
like, man, we can't take a nap right now. Like, shut up. Like, this person is gonna die. We cannot take a nap. And the dog is like, all right, fuck you then. I'm out. And he left. And then you can go like see the dog later in the game, and I try to pet it and stuff. And it was like, Rookie does not like you. And I was like, oh shit, okay. Rookie's holding a grudge because I wouldn't let him take a nap in the middle of a dungeon.
Yeah, in the middle of some battles. Luckily, he never pesters you during fights, but
Yeah.
the moment the fight's over, he's wanting an apple. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, calm down.
The puzzles I thought were pretty easy, and I'm kind of I'm grateful for that. I don't think this game would have been served by having really difficult puzzles. This is no more difficult puzzle wise than your average Zelda game, and I think that that is a good idea. It just kind of like shakes up the gameplay a little bit. We'll talk. This is kind of combat heavy in a lot of areas. We'll talk about that later. I'm not a huge fan of the combat though, so I was happy to get some, you know, little light puzzling or platforming or doing the spinner, like the spinner in Twilight Princess was one of my favorite things in that game, and it's pretty fun in this game too. So I kind of enjoyed the puzzling and kind of searching for treasure and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Anything that increases your mobility is always welcome in my book.
Hmm.
Like Doom Eternal is one of my favorite games, and this game is once you start getting those mobility abilities, you really start to feel a little bit like the Doom guy, especially if you ever experiment with the weapon combinations or anything. I'm not sure what part we're on, but do you want to get into the weapons or anything like that, or is that skipping ahead?
That is a little bit later in the notes, but you can bring it up if you want.
Oh no, we'll talk about it there. I'll definitely remember
Okay.
because I was having fun towards the end. I was like playing. I was playing a video game rather than trying to escape the ever present the omnipresent death happening all around me.
There is a good moment once you get all of those upgrades later in the game. You do get that sweet Metroidvania feeling of like you're in total command of the map. You can handle anything, and you're just kind of like flying through these screens really quickly as you're trying to get across the map and do your kind of end game tasks. So you do get that sweet spot that like a good Metroidvania will make you feel like super super powerful at the end of the game, and you like no obstacle can stop you, no enemy can stop you. And I definitely felt that at the end, but in the middle, woo, rough, rough.
Oh yeah.
I got so lost. Not lost. Lost is the wrong word because I knew exactly where I needed to go, but this game gives you these they feel very arbitrary reasons why. Like, I need to get inside this building. I'm literally right outside of the building, but the game is like, nope, you can't go in the door because there's a monster there. You can't fight this monster. And I ran into this time where I was like, I need to get into this building. I used my knowledge of the map and everything like that, all these movement upgrades to get to the entrance to the building. And then I got inside. There's the big eldritch monster. You can't fight them until the end. So it's like, nope, get out. And then I was like, okay, I'll find a second way into the building. And then I did. I found a second way. I used again my knowledge of the map and the movement upgrades and everything. And I found a new way, and I went in the new way, and there was another of those monsters, and there was like, nope, you can't get in this way. And I was like, fuck this game. That's when I texted you, and I was like, I hate this game
Oh,
because
that's interesting.
I got so frustrated. And you know what the solution was? It was to hop on the spinner and go past those enemies, even though the game tells you to run away. You go in the room, the game tells you, like, you can't fight this, find a new way, or something like that. But what you had to do was get on the spinner and get past it and get on an elevator. That was how I solved that. And so that was the point where I was like, man, I am sick of this game. So
That's really interesting, actually. Continue, sorry. I
it's all
just,
right.
like, my brain just exploded with a whole bunch of
the
questions.
just like the navigating in between the dungeons, trying to find the way into the next dungeon. I it's my least favorite part of the game by far. I think it's confusing and again feels very arbitrary of like there are three ways into this dungeon, but the developers clearly just want you to use one way. And I don't really like that. I don't didn't like it.
There is a significant, like, obtuseness to a couple of things,
Mhm.
like you were saying, the puzzles are very easy, except occasionally you just have like there's no solution. And I'm really interested in digging a little bit into what you're saying now, because I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what you're. And but this is the thing, that you said the spinner, and I realized, I in my head, realized what part of the map you were talking about. I got stuck before that. Like, I made it into the building from some way, I can't remember, but I got stuck with the key thing that I thought I needed. But what
Mhm.
I really needed was just a simple solution to a puzzle that I was just being a dum dum about. Like a very obvious puzzle that I just didn't see the solution for.
Yeah.
And I eventually found out that I ran around and talked to a million people, and I talked to the blueprint lady, the blacksmith. She had a blueprint for a grenade launcher, and in my head I was like, I wonder if this can blow up rocks. And so I bought the grenade launcher blueprint, equipped it, made it, ran around blowing up all of the rocks. I got around. This is the second. The second dungeon is the one I was working on, but I ended up blowing my way around to the third dungeon,
Oh,
and I
jeez.
explored the third dungeon, which looped into the second dungeon, and then I found another way into the second dungeon. But eventually I got stuck and I couldn't progress forward. But it makes me think that the you were having trouble getting into this building that I just accidentally wandered into, like, in a really roundabout way,
Yeah,
maybe. Or
maybe.
are we thinking of different
It
areas?
might be separate ones, but again, like, the map is mostly open, like, and the like you said, the dungeons connect to each other. There's, like I think there's 3 levels to the map. There's, like, an upper highways level, there's a ground level, and then there's, like, a basement sewer level, and you can connect all the dungeons and stuff to each other through one of those, ways, and so, like, it's one of the best things about a lot of Metroidvanias, right? Like you get this big map, you're trying
Mhm.
to master the map and figure out how things connect to each other. I just found it way too confusing in this game to like I think there's just like one layer of complexity too much for me to like intuitively figure out where I was supposed to go cuz like you said there's 5 dungeons. The first one is, there's no puzzle or there's no like figuring out how to get into it. It's just there. And then the other ones you have to
Yeah.
figure out how to get into them. Not unlike a, Link to the Past or something like that, but I got stuck on at least 3 of them. Like And it's frustrating because you're like, I'm right outside and I've already found two entrances to this, but the game just won't let me go in. So what am I supposed to do? This is not fun anymore. This is frustrating. And all the while the time is ticking.
Yeah, for sure.
So like this aspect of the game doesn't work for me so well. And then like you do get this like the urge in Metroidvanias is like when you pick up a new power up. Let's say you get the hook shot, right? I want to go explore the map and see where this hook shot can lead me to treasure that I missed before. But in this game, you have that time mechanic that is, I don't want to say it's punishing you for going to explore because you're going to find some meteor dust probably while you're out exploring, but it at least disincentivizes you a little bit from just like exploring for a couple hours because your NPCs are going to die unless you find a ton of meteor dust when you're out there.
It is not unlike the moon in Majora's Mask,
Yeah,
where it's omnipresent, and it changes your mentality about a couple of things. Um, my so you mentioned the big scary alien monsters. Did you can kill those without the end game weapon?
you
It's
can.
terrible.
It's really hard and like we'll get into the combat in a second, but to kill those without the weapon that the whole game is the point is to make this weapon so you can kill these things. You can do it without it, but it's
Yeah.
really hard. Like too hard for me to do. So I just treated that as like a nope, not me.
I'm not gonna pretend like I'm good at video games. I actually cheesed a monster,
Okay.
but um, so this was post me because me talking about getting the grenade launcher reminded me. This is post me with the grenade launcher, and I am literally just combing the map now, just trying to find a way out of my predicament.
Right.
And there is a specific area where you can climb up a vine onto a building rooftop, and then a monster will start running at you. It's in like the middle of the city, but it can't hit you. It can't get to you. So I use the grenade launcher and I'm banking it off of the wall next to me to fall down into the floor. And it took me about 20 minutes. And I got an achievement for it on the Xbox,
Oh,
which is
nice.
pretty cool. Thank you. But it's it was terrible. And I was like, surely I'm gonna get something for this, right? And I drop down and there's a chest. I'm like, yes. I open the chest up and da na 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 meteor dust. And I'm
Right.
like, oh my god, I have 11 of these.
Yeah.
Like that took so long. It took at least a day in game time.
Yeah, I was
Like
gonna say the meteor dust that you got offset the time you spent to kill that thing. Maybe.
not worth.
Yeah, and then only at the very end of the game did I get into that sweet flow of like end game Metroidvania. I'm going to go through the map with all my powers and I'm going to destroy everything in my path. Only at the end of the game did I feel that, and that's by design. But in the middle of the game when you're supposed to be exploring and finding paths and stuff, I got so frustrated. And it kind of makes me feel good to hear that you got frustrated too. That it's not just me being dense and impatient as I tend to be sometimes in games. So we're going to take a little music break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the kind of combat and, by extension, the kind of Souls-like elements of this game. The game has a very Souls light, I will say, kind of combat system. Number one, you lose your money when you die. Go back to the spot where you die to regain your money. I think it's actually half of your money, not all of it.
Mhm.
The enemies stay dead until you recharge at a terminal, aka rest at a bonfire in Dark Souls speak. I like that the enemies stay dead when you're exploring. I like that they don't respawn every screen like, Metroid games do and stuff like that. I don't think this game is at all served by having a lose your money when you die mechanic. I just like this feels like something that where they were like, we want to use Dark Souls elements. Okay, well, you lose your money when you die. And it's like, well, why do you lose your money when you die? I don't know. You just do. That's kind of how it feels in this game. I don't know how you feel about this. Did this bother you at all?
It was very strange, especially because for a long period of time I wasn't dying, so I didn't even know that this was the case. I probably lost a handful of money. The only thing I can think of is the main source, the main drain on your wallet in this game is you use the, I think they're called bolts. I might be
Yeah.
thinking of Ratchet and Clank now, but um they use the money to upgrade the amount of chip slots that you have. They go
Right.
as far as to even include a chip, which takes up 2 slots. To that negates the money loss penalty upon death in
Right.
general, which I don't think is worth it. Because at that point, you could just have extra armor or health, like something that would benefit you more than that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I have no clue why, because I was never hurting for money besides whenever I thought I needed that key. So, and at the end, I was fully upgraded with the chips. I'm not sure about you. I'm sure you were, because it
Yeah.
sounds like you were like me, that you ran around the map and killed everything.
Yeah, so I don't know why you lose your money other than that's just the way that a Souls like must work by law. But you do. And then combat in this game is kind of Soulsy, but not really. The most Souls like thing that I can think of is that you have a stamina bar. Again, I don't know why you have a stamina bar, unless they just don't want you attacking incessantly. But I feel like you don't have enough stamina in this game. Like you run out of stamina more quickly than you do in a Dark Souls game. You can swing your sword 3 times before you run out of stamina, and in a picture yourself playing A Link to the Past and you're out of stamina after 3 sword swings. It doesn't feel great. At least it didn't to me. But there is a stamina system, and then like Nave said, you have these chip slots where you can kind of customize your character. So you add in chips like in Near Automata. It's a pretty good comparison there. You add in
Yeah, it
chips
is.
for bonus health or bonus defense or more stamina or like extra damage for swords or extra damage for axes, um, extra gun damage, better spin attack. There's all kinds of chips you can use. I mostly just filled up mine with more stamina and a couple things for more health. And then I used a sword throughout the game and I used a chip
Well,
for extra sword damage. And that's about it. Yeah. The main thing in combat is to block. Blocking and perfect blocking is essential for this game. Most enemies are very hard to like attack, dodge like you would in, Bloodborne, Souls, stuff like that.
yeah.
But you can block and parry anything in this game, including ranged attacks too. If you perfect block a ranged attack, it'll shoot it back at the enemy that shot it at you.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's
That's
like
all.
little,
I actually,
yeah,
I
there's
didn't
little.
use parry too much.
Oh, okay. I felt like it was essential then. So maybe you have a different kind of perspective on this. So a lot of enemies, if you get a perfect parry, they will get like, stunned, and if you hit them when they're stunned, they'll take like 5 times as much damage as a regular attack. Like it'll kill most enemies in one hit if you hit them when they're stunned. And this felt for regular enemies, it felt essential to, you can kind of swing stun lock the regular enemies and kill them like little dudes, but there's a lot of bigger
Yeah.
enemies and I feel like you have to block those. You have to perfect parry those.
So we had a very large divergence in play styles as far as the combat, it seems. So you went sword and you went high stamina, and I went axe and I went all defense. Like I
Okay.
had everything was full of health, defensive armor, stuff like that. And so I was I had to hit people more, but I was using the axe, which does more damage typically, but for the most part I was doing a lot of jumping away. I would do a lot of like guerrilla warfare, hit once and jump away, because
Mhm.
I would use like all of my stamina on that one swing, and so I'd have just enough stamina to jump away like twice. As far as there are smaller enemies which choreograph their swings a lot easier, and there are some really big slow enemies that I would parry as well, but for the most part, like with the harpies and stuff, I was just like crossing my fingers and just hoping that I could kill them before they stun locked me and killed me.
Mhm.
But I had so much health. and I only took like 1 or 2 damage from basically any attack unless it was a boss attack.
Okay.
So I was a pretty beefy boy, just kind of the same way that I play Dark Souls. I don't trust my timing with parry, which is
Yeah.
hilarious because I'm a notorious rhythm gamer. So you'd think my timing is amazing, but like I have little patience for learning like attack patterns and stuff. So like I just want to beef my way through it, and that's kind of how I went through that game. Parrying is very good though.
It's pretty satisfying, and, like, a lot of enemies will, like, once you hit that perfect block, they will, like, fall upside down and stuff like that, and it's pretty satisfying, and the window for parrying, I think, is pretty generous because 'cause I'm not good at parrying in a lot of games, like well, we talked about Dark Souls a lot. I can't parry in those games. I find it mostly
Mhm.
impossible, but in this game, it's pretty generous, it's pretty easy to parry. What gets you, though, is some enemies will not stagger on the first parry. You have to parry them 2 or 3 times in a row, and that starts to get tough, but by the end of the game, I was like, those big eldritch things, I had those
Yeah.
things down, and I would fuck those things up if I came across them. Only at the end, though.
The that sounds like Sekiro a little bit, parrying multiple times to stagger.
Yeah.
And those Eldritch dudes are like the way I fought them is I knew I could get 2 hits off and I would be out of stamina. I would get hit once, so I'd have to heal while I was invincible, and
Mhm.
then I could swing one more time and kill it. And that
Yeah.
was every single time I fought one. Like that was the exact pattern. And if I ever was off for like a second, I would just die instantly and I'd just be like, "Well, damn, got to go back."
Did you ever use the gun in this game or, like, ranged attacks at all?
Ooh, do you want to get into like builds because I really like this was a huge part of my builds is that I was very ranged.
Okay, let's hear
Whenever
about
I
it.
was out of stamina, you could just use your ranged weapons like just whenever you're recovering stamina. So I was like, this is perfect. Um, at the beginning, I was using the grenade launcher a ton.
Mhm.
The fact that so many weapons also double up as utility items is very unfortunate. So I had my ninja class, of course, with the shuriken and the katana, which I hardly ever use. I only use the shuriken, because I started to use I got a thunder axe pretty early, which is very strong,
Mhm.
and so I got the thunder axe and the grenade launcher, and that was my big boy weapons. And then the last one was just kind of utility until I got the hook shot. Do you want to talk about like end game? Did you ever experiment with the weapon? Because in this game you can equip 2 weapons, but
Right.
you have 3 slots that you can swap between, kind of like how it is in Diablo,
Mhm.
where you just swap instantly between different item sets.
Yeah.
And so you can do that with 3 different weapon sets.
Right. So so like the main weapons you have are like your melee weapons, you have swords and axes. And I tried to make axes work, but they're just too slow for me and I was just getting wrecked cuz they attack so slow and this is the same as I play in Souls games is the big heavy weapons. I'm just not as good cuz the windups are so long and stuff like that. So I played with swords in this game and then I used all 3 of those loadout slots for different like one of them would have sword and hook shot, and then the next one would have sword and shuriken, and then the next one would have sword and grenade launcher. And so what I was getting at is like you have ranged weapons too. Like you have a whole list of guns. Like Nave said, you use the grenade launcher, you get pistols, automatic, kind of like an
Submachine
assault
guns.
rifle type stuff. Yeah, I never
Yeah.
used a gun ever. I just forgot, like consistently forgot that I had a gun in combat. I was all about parrying and melee attacks and stuff like that.
I highly I highly recommend you go back. Okay, so this was my baby at the end. Before this, at the end game when I was very strong, but before I got the end game weapon, your master sword, you could say.
Right.
Uh, uh, I had the perfect fighting. I never switched off of this combination. Well, so I did get so there's a grenade launcher. There's a thing called the tri grenade launcher or a spread grenade launcher, and it shoots 3 grenades,
Oh.
and you have 3 rounds of it. So the original grenade launcher has 1 grenade, 3 rounds. This is literally just an upgrade for that, and that at no downside. The reload's the same exact speed and everything. So
Mhm.
once you get the hook shot, I turned this game into Doom fucking Eternal. And every single enemy I saw, I like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat would go, "Get over here!" and grab that guy, pull him to me, hold him by his face, put my grenade launcher right up to his head, and then blow him up. And almost every time, all 3 grenades would be an instant kill on almost every enemy.
Nice.
It was fantastic, and I was just having so much fun. I would Spider-Man across the room, grab someone, yank him over away from his friends, blow him up immediately.
Yeah,
And you can do that 3 times before you have to reload, and then you can just Spider-Man away and reload. It's so fun.
that's
It's
see,
such
and
a funny playstyle.
that's cool, and that means there's a lot more like build variety to this than I initially thought. Because I was playing this as kind of like a 2D Sekiro almost. Like I was all about parrying perfect blocks and stuff like that, and melee attacks. I never used the hook shot in a combat way, and I never used the guns like at all. Never. I got real mad because they give you the ice grenade launcher as a Metroidvania type upgrade to help you make
Yeah.
platforms on water, but you run out of ammo in the middle of platforming and it's super fucking frustrating. So I got real mad and I like if I could have put that grenade launcher in a box and just left it there, I would have because I was so spiteful about that. Later you get the ice shuriken, which you can just throw and make platforms super easily. So like that trouble goes away. There's also like an active reload system in this game, not unlike a Returnal or Gears of War or something. But I found it so hard to do. I like could not do it, and reloading takes a long time. So again, never use guns in combat outside of like the first half hour of the game. But it's cool to hear that you did and that you found like a really cool, you know, build that I never thought of.
Another way to well, so I didn't think about the ice shuriken. I got all the blueprints for the shurikens, but I never actually built any. But I used the ice grenade launcher once that kind of combination came together. My second build with the axe was I swapped it with the ice grenade launcher, and
Hmm.
that might make you feel, or you can substitute it with there's an ice beam gun thing. I can't remember what it is, and then the ice shuriken where that really helps compensate for the slow wind up of the axe because the axe is way more powerful than the sword.
Yeah.
And to compensate, it uses more stamina and it's slower. But
Hmm.
if the enemy's frozen,
True.
then
Yeah.
you just smash them like it's Sub Zero's fatality. It's
Nice.
it's over.
Yeah.
But so that's what I was doing for a while. Was
Cool.
those two combinations of weapons?
The other kind of component to this combat system is the crafting, which plays into this. So throughout the game, when you're exploring, you'll find these kind of trash. You'll find trash around the world, and they're your crafting components.
Yeah, like a fuse
Yeah, you'll find
or
blown
something.
fuses or literally like tin cans and stuff like that around the world, and you use these to craft these other items called cogs, and cogs give you temporary bonuses, like the next 3 hits you take will be negated by a defense cog, or the next 20 attacks that you make will have increased power with an attack cog. There's also ones for stamina. There's ones for getting a free life. If you die, you'll revive, and this is what you craft. And so each level has a crafting table at the beginning, usually next to the terminal, the bonfire. And I eventually, like I said, you can, if you give the NPC enough meteor dust, you can get a mobile crafting table where you can craft anywhere. And I found these cogs to be 100% necessary against the bosses
Ah,
in this
yes.
game. I went through so many cogs, and when I got that mobile crafting table, I was crafting during boss fights, which, you know, is a little funny to think about. You pull out your mobile crafting table and you pound out a gear at the time, but these were so necessary to like create. I don't want to say like a specific loadout because every single time was basically like, okay, defense cog, attack cog, revive cog, and then maybe another defense cog, and you can kind of brute force some of a boss fight. You still have to learn the bosses; they'll kill you if you don't learn them, but it does take away a lot of the struggle, which I don't like in Dark Souls games. Like there was no boss in this game that I had to fight more than 3 times, and I think it's because of this cog system.
Oh yeah, the cog system was fantastic. At first, I was kind of sleeping on it, but because you don't really get too many at the beginning, and you obviously don't have the blueprints to craft them. But once you have 4 cogs, you can only ever have 4 in your inventory. If you ever pick up a 5th one, it asks you if you want to destroy it to turn it into money. And of course, I'm like, maybe not. Let me go look at my cogs, put it back in the chest, and I have 3 stamina cogs. I could just like, okay, I could just discard one of these.
Mhm.
But I started just to activate them just because I'm like, okay, well, I either use them or lose them, right? And I'm never coming back for this treasure chest, so I'm putting it in my brain that I'm just gonna start using these. And like you said, I also had my own little. I had my preferred setup for whenever I went into boss fights, and it was always since I was so beefy, I had so much health and defense already. I would always just get 2 attack cogs, 1 stamina cog, and 1 revive just in case. But I agree with you. The bosses are very interesting. I basically enjoyed every bosses. I even enjoyed some of the mini bosses, but for the most part, I think only one boss killed me, and I think it was the first one when I was at my weakest point in the game, and but I ended up I don't know because even at the second boss I had played the game like most of my NPCs were dead. It was so long how long I was playing the game, so I had the grenade launcher. I was really like fighting pretty strongly at that point.
Yeah. So the bosses, this is something that I think the bosses are fine. Like they're not Metroid bad. I think Metroid games have horrible bosses, except for Metroid Dread. Those bosses are good. These bosses are fine. They're learnable, and once you learn their
Mhm.
attacks, they are pretty fun sometimes. My thing with the bosses is that they're all basically the same thing. They're all basically like this boss is going to shoot some stuff at you. You have to learn how to dodge it. And then you dodge it, and then they're going to come melee attack you, parry them twice in a row, and you can get in a bunch of hits. Then it's going to repeat. But then they're going to add some ads. So a couple of ads are going to come in. This is true for like 4 of the 6 bosses or however many bosses there are. Then you avoid the attacks and kill the ads. Then it's going to come melee attack you. You parry it twice. Then you're done. That's how all of the patterns seem to me. And since I was parrying, that's kind of how I engaged with it. It ended up making them all feel basically the same with different, this one has these ranged attacks, the next one has these ranged attacks. But other than that, they felt very similar. The settings were different for all of them though, so it does shake it up a little bit. And yeah, the again, they started to feel the same, but they're not bad. I just didn't like I'm not gonna remember these boss fights. I actually already barely remember them, and it's only been a couple weeks since I played this game. There are a couple that I remember though. We can talk about them in the spoiler section. I don't know. As a whole, I think they're fine. Not super memorable though.
Again, it's interesting because we had such a different perspective on combat. It's super cool to hear because you're like, I'm parrying the bosses, and I'm like, you can fucking parry the bosses? What?
Yeah,
You could do that?
it felt necessary. Because that's how you get big damage. Because you parry them twice in a row, they fall down. You go hit them and take away a chunk of their health bar. That felt super necessary to me. So it's crazy to me that you obviously had good success against them without doing that.
I was just war of attritioning it. I guess I just play even though my build seems so much more reckless, I was playing way more safe than that. I was not trying to attempt I was nowhere near them when they were attacking me melee. Essentially most again, I agree with you with the bosses kind of like being kind of not copy paste, but like the strategy against them is very similar where almost every single boss I had was jump through the ranged attack towards them so that I can hit them with my axe once and then jump away. So and that's all of my stamina by the way. So hopefully they don't have a follow up.
Right.
But and then as soon as they start trying to melee me, I'm jumping away and shooting my grenade launcher back where they're at, just hitting them point blank with my grenade launcher essentially. Which the good thing about this grenade launcher is there's no splash damage on you, so you
Mhm.
don't ever take damage. You can shoot people right in the face a la I was hookshotting people into my face and shooting them. But Once you get the grenade launcher, maybe the grenade launcher might be a little too strong, and that's why I was able to kill bosses on for the most part the first try. But that was essentially my entire experience, especially when you get the triple grenade launcher. That thing just is just nuts. That thing is
Okay.
doing like 14 damage per grenade 3 times. So it's like, what is 9 times 14? I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, okay, so maybe the bosses are not as like prescriptive as I thought they were. Like there are multiple ways to approach them. You don't have to parry those attacks. So that's cool. It's I had kind of figured that like the way that I was doing it was the way that you had to do it. Because parrying opens them up for so much damage. It felt like a kind of mandatory thing to me. But since that was not your experience, then I was not correct in that assumption. So that is cool to hear. And that's um, makes me feel a little bit better about the way it was designed. Like I really felt like the way I was playing it was the way you had to. Like the way that Sekiro works or something like that. And I
Yeah.
guess that's not the case. So that's cool.
It is very interesting because it makes me want. I wish I could. Did you Twitch stream this? I was like, I wish I could just watch and see how much damage you do when you're parrying them, because I'm like, maybe I was making the boss fights last twice as long because I was just wasn't exploiting weak spots.
Yeah, when you get the perfect parry and they fall down and you hit them, I want to say you do at least like 20%. You can do like a weapon combo while they're down. And if you get like a full combo in while they're just laying on the ground, I feel like it takes away like 20% of their health bar. So if you do that 3 times throughout the fight, plus, chip damage whenever you get an opportunity in the other parts of the fight, that was my strategy. And I felt like I had to get like again very Zelda. I felt like I had to do this pattern 3 times, and that's how like all Zelda bosses are. Like you find the weak
Yeah.
point, you do it 3 times, and then the fight's over. And that's exactly how these felt to me too. But again, cool that that wasn't the way you approached it, and you found that the triple grenade launcher helped you out a lot. And it sounds like it made the boss fights easier for you because I died. Most of the bosses killed me at least once until the end when we'll talk about how, but I was very powered up at the end of the game.
I did. Now that I'm thinking about it, I did die to another boss. I died to the first one, and I died to, I want to say, the fourth one, but we can talk about that in the spoilers. I'll get more granular with that.
Okay, cool. The other kind of Dark Soulsy thing, and like Dark Souls didn't invent this, but like there's so many Dark Souls ish systems in the game, like design choices in the game that I'm putting it on in the Souls section is that the map is separated by checkpoints, and like within the dungeons too, there are these shortcuts that will lead you back to your checkpoint or make backtracking easier or open up connections into entire other levels and stuff like that. So again, because of that time mechanic, I never used those shortcuts between levels a lot because I was always like, you know, I could go, use this new shortcut and check out these sewers, but my fairy bot has 30 hours to live. I'm just going to stick, eye on the prize, basically. So, but the shortcuts were helpful in the levels, especially if you die against the boss, you'll probably open up some shortcuts that get you back to the boss room pretty quickly. So, yeah, I enjoyed
Yeah.
that. It's always a good feeling in any game when you open up a shortcut back to your checkpoint. And in this game, it feels the same way inside the dungeons.
Especially since this game has the Dark Souls thing where you can teleport between bonfires as well.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems incredibly necessary in a game where time is of the essence.
Right.
Like, there's like, it would be especially frustrating, especially towards the end of the game, whenever you are running around killing the monsters with your Master Sword. There are multiple times where I would be like, okay, he's just south of this bonfire thing. I'm going to just teleport there. And I would go south, and there would be a wall there with a button on the other side. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
I have to run
It's the
all
same
the
as
way
the
around now.
Dark Souls. This door does not open from this side. It's exactly the same.
There's a door in Elden Ring, and I still don't know how to get on the other side. And none of my friends know how. And it's very early in the game.
Yeah.
It's like just before the second boss. And I'm just like, there's so much item over there. I can see it from
Yeah.
the bars in the window.
Right. But again, like you do open up those shortcuts between levels themselves. And since I very rarely strayed from the main path until the very end of the game, I didn't tend to use those a whole lot, but they are there. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're not pressed for time, or if you find yourself in a situation where you just like don't care if the NPCs are going to go unsighted, you're like, this NPC is going to die in 10 hours, but they don't offer me anything, so I don't care. If that's your mindset, then these levels are all like really well connected to each other in a very like Dark Souls 1 or like Hollow Knight type of way. Like the whole map is connected to the whole map.
It's interesting too because I don't know if you ever looked through the I don't know what platform you played this on, but on the Xbox I went through all the achievements as I do because I'm an addict. I
Mhm.
always go through the achievements before I start playing a game just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And there are multiple achievements that are for literally sequence breaking or like skipping complete things.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
like there are the game is so short. Like I was saying, this game took us 7 and 8 hours to beat, but I'm sure now that I know where everything is, now that I know exactly what I need to get into exact places, I think I could probably beat this game in about an hour, maybe an hour 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Like just sprinting through it. Like I'm going to just go as fast as I can through the first two dungeons, get that triple grenade launcher as soon as possible, use that for the rest of the fucking playthrough. Like but the cool thing is, like I was saying, that I wandered into the third dungeon before I got to before I even completed the second dungeon. Now I couldn't really do anything in the third dungeon, but get but like the fact that I was there was very interesting. And at the beginning of the game, I'm fairly certain it tells you outright that you can tackle these dungeons in any order you want.
Yep.
Now, and it was like you can do it in any order you want. It's recommended you go in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 order that we give you
Mhm.
and follow the little waypoint. But obviously, if you've beaten the game before, maybe there is multiple different ways that you can sequence break this game. And this game is a very small fan base, but the fan base is very dedicated. I found on the subreddit and the YouTube videos and stuff. Like there are people who really enjoy this game, and I think that is probably the aspect. This like mastery of the map, which a lot of Dark Souls games and even Metroidvania games and even Zelda games for that matter, like all these influences that the developers I've pulled from, they it's definitely a work of love, this map that they have. And like you were saying at the beginning, there is one level past acceptability. Like it is a little convoluted and there is some obtuseness to the map. But I wish some things were a little bit more clear. Like I wish I wouldn't go south and there would be a wall there. I wish like the first time I saw that wall, there should be a red line there that says I don't know how to get through that wall. Like Resident Evil style. Even like I'm pretty sure Resident Evil 1 did that. When you would see a locked door, it would be a red line.
Mhm. Yeah.
But the interconnectivity of the map is very interesting. And if it's weird in a game that is has a very strict time limit, but once you play through the game once or twice, I'm sure that the mastery that you gain from just knowing your locations, just I'm pretty sure people who've beaten this game a couple times just don't even think about the timer anymore.
Oh, yeah,
Like
I'm sure.
it's not even a thing because they're beating the game so fast. So they're just exploring to their heart's content.
Yeah, I would guess that a speed run of this game is like really short, like under an hour, I'm sure. Like because if you can sequence break as many times as there's achievements like you said for sequence breaking. So if you can do that, I would assume that yeah, you can get like total mastery on like where you need to go and how you need to do it and stuff like that. I just spent so much time lost though because speed speed running and sequence breaking and the way I play are very different things. So
Yeah,
yeah, but
me
that
too. I like to
possibility is
explore every
there.
nook and cranny.
Yeah, again, I like to explore every nook and cranny too, and that's what I love about Souls games. That's what I love about Metroidvanias. But that time mechanic was kind of telling me like, hey man, don't explore too much because someone's going to die while you're doing that. It's like you get these messages
Yeah.
that like, oh, the blacksmith has gone unsighted while I'm out, treasure hunting or something like that. Feels like I'm like neglecting what I should be doing in a way.
I think there's an achievement. So the main thing you need to do in the game is go to the 5 dungeons, get the 5, what are they called? Shards of,
Yeah,
I
meteor
think, of
shards.
something. I didn't wanna say meteor shards because meteor dust, I thought that I was getting things confused, but, meteor shards, I'm pretty sure there's an achievement for getting the first meteor shard in the tutorial of the game. Like, I think you can just stumble upon it
Oh,
in some
weird.
weird, crazy way. And
Sequence break, okay.
so the achievements are, I mean, it is all very spoilery, obviously. All of those achievements are it's spoiler tagged, so you can't look at it. You have to like go onto a website
Right,
that takes those away so that you can look at them.
right.
But yeah, it's very, very interesting. And once you beat the game, you get like a couple of different game modes. You get like boss rush and new game plus and
Mhm.
all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's like, well, I mean, if you get a new game plus and that carries the weapons over, then obviously you can sequence break all you want. So maybe I just accidentally negated my first point, but
Oh,
oh
who
well.
knows? So this game is like pixel art, kind of isometric pixel art, and I think this game looks really good. I think like pixel art in general is just an awesome, you know, artistic design choice for a lot of games. I think the pixel art in this game is good. In the cutscenes, it's a little bit more detailed than it is in the the game world, but both of them look really good. There's a lot of color, especially with some of the monsters. I found sometimes in combat it was kind of hard to like read what was going on screen because maybe some of the color choices, like the enemy is the same color as the floor and stuff like that. So sometimes I would like literally like be bumping up against an enemy just because I didn't see them there. That didn't feel good, but like artistically, the character designs and stuff like that, it's kind of anime in a way, but like pixel art and like the way the characters are drawn looks very anime to me. I think this game looks really good.
Like your first thing with the pixel art is timeless. Like that's the reason why NES or SN, not NES, but SNES games look really amazing. Like Symphony of the Night looks amazing, but then you go to watch Super Mario 64 speedruns and it just looks hideous. It's
Yeah.
just colored triangles and squares. But the art style, yeah, what you were saying, it looks like it is inspired by anime, but it's definitely very Western. It's kind of like anime meets, I don't want to be like it, like Adventure Time, Steven Universe kind of feel a little bit. I'm not like a big fan. Like it's not anime enough for me so that I'm like this is anime, but it
Uh-huh.
is not realistic enough for me to where I'm like it is a little bit in that uncanny valley for me personally, but I mean, I'm not gonna knock like I think the game itself looks very good. I think the monster design is very interesting, especially the like Cthulhu looking creatures that you're fighting at the end. They're very menacing. They're very fast. They attack very, uh, in a very uncanny way. Like I'm very into those creatures, and the environments are really, really nice. Like there are some effects in some areas that are, I don't want to say breathtaking because I don't want to set that bar way high. It's not like Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley looks pretty awesome, but I mean, like there are like leaves flying in the wind as you're jumping over ponds and like making stones pop up in the lakes and stuff. And I'm like, this is very peaceful. I wish I wasn't on a time limit so that I can enjoy this a little bit more. But it's got a post-apocalyptic vibe though. There's a lot of ruination going everywhere. Like all the buildings are destroyed. It's like the outskirts of a city for the
Mhm.
most part. If
Yeah.
when you're not underground, but yeah, I'm going on. So sorry, I'm just like
That's
confused
all
now.
right. I did look it up. The developers are from Brazil, so it is definitely like a kind of Western anime style. It definitely hits me in that kind of way, the same way that talking about something I don't know a whole lot about. My only other experience with something like that would be like Avatar: The Last Airbender or something like that. Clearly, anime, but
Yeah.
not Japanese anime. So that's the way it's designed. It looks really good. Your main character looks cool. A lot of the other characters, I think, have pretty cool character designs. The dogs are cute. The bosses look cool. Like the enemy sprites look very cool. And there's a lot of, you know, kind of effects going on screen. There's rain, there's smoke, and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's a good looking game, definitely. So let's get into some final thoughts about Unsighted before we get into the spoiler section. Always kick it to the guest first. So, Nave, kind of in summary, what do you want people to know about Unsighted?
If Breath of the Wild meets Link to the Past meets Majora's Mask meets Dark Souls, if that if none of that perked your ears up, then this is not the game for you. If you don't like two-dimensional games, maybe step away from this as well. It's a very action, twitch reflex oriented. It's not hard, but it's like if you're really bad at combat in a two-dimensional plane, then maybe this isn't the game for you. I'm pretty bad at it, but I was able to get through it okay as a tank. So I mean, if there's hope for me, there's hope for you guys. Uh, the time mechanic is very interesting, but you can turn it off if you want to just explore the world the first playthrough as like a very chill experience. I'm sure that that's a possibility. I find that a lot of my frustrations came from the time mechanic, but I was very stubborn about turning it off. I was like, this is how the developer wanted it, so I'm going to do this. This is how I will suffer if they wanted me to. Even though when you go on the Reddit, almost everyone is like, just reset the game if you feel like you're too far gone. It's not that hard to get back to where you were. And I'm like, no, no, everyone will die. But the game is very fun, especially at the end. I'm not sure how much we talked. Well, we're not the spoiler section, right?
Right, not yet.
There's another section coming up. Okay, cool. I was like, are we done? Because I feel like there's stuff I still wanted to say. But yeah, so as far as combat is concerned, you can get a pretty good gauge on like just a random YouTube video. But if you liked Bastion, this game is very similar to that. Obviously, Link to the Past, the influences like Metroidvania, but not uh, side scrolling. It's good. It's legitimately very good. It's not my style, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I think I'm going to go back and replay it whenever my co-op partner decides he wants to play it. Which he's been listening to me bitch about being stuck in that game so much that he wants to play the game now and not be stuck. Like he wants to beat the game, not stuck, and go, "You just suck at video games." Oh, you know what I mean? But this is definitely more his game than mine.
Okay. So for me, first of all, I will recommend people try this game because like I did get stuck and it was frustrating. And I did text Nave and say, I fucking hate this game. Those are my words that I sent. Those were my real feelings at the time. So like I think there are some frustrating sections in this game, but this game is trying something interesting with the time mechanic. And I think they pulled that off. Like I think the time mechanic's really good. It makes you think in like this moral kind of gray area where it's like, hey, no one else is going to save this world. If my character runs out of time, everyone's fucked. So, killing that NPC makes me feel bad, but I need that time. Um, you do get yourself into situations like that. And like I said, people complain about that kind of what's the word they use, ludo narrative dissonance of The Witcher 3 when the Wild Hunt's coming any day, but I'm going to do every side quest available to me. People complain about that. And this game has the opposite thing where you are feeling the pressures of your main quest and you really feel the consequences of like spending time dicking around. So in that way, this game is really cool, and I think it pulls that off. There were some sections, like I said, that were super frustrating. Mostly trying to find out how to get into each of the dungeons was very frustrating. I found the map confusing, and I didn't like how the developers basically several times in a row were like, hey, good job finding a way into the dungeon, but not this way. Find another way. And then I found another way, and they were like, not this way. Find another way. And I thought that sucked. But once I got past that, I'm not averse to looking stuff up. So a couple times I did go online, search through a let's play, found out how to get into the dungeon, and then I moved on, and I had a very good time at the end of the game. So we said this before, both of us kind of agree. Beginning and end of the game, very good, very fun. Middle of the game, quite frustrating. So that is kind of my experience with Unsighted. I do think it's cool. I think if they make another game with this time mechanic or something equally as creative, it will also be worth playing. So, kind of my thoughts in summary about Unsighted. Um, the main thing that drew me into the game was that time mechanic, and I think that that was a unique experience. It was cool. So, before we get into spoilers, a little housekeeping, and we'll begin by Nave. Why don't you tell people where they can find the Gaming Together podcast?
We are on all of the podcast platforms, as far as I'm aware, at Gaming Together, a cooperative podcast. I run the Twitter account. It is at Game Together Pod, because Gaming Together Pod is too long, and Gaming Together was taken.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Facebook group too, but I don't know what it's called because Philip runs that. So I always feel bad. I just let that one hang every single time. But I'm sure it's not that hard to find. Yeah, that's basically it.
Cool. And I'll link the social media and stuff like that down in the show notes so people can easily find you guys. Again, it's a good show. I enjoy listening to it. And you and Philip have a good kind of co host dynamic there. I enjoy listening to the both of you. So recommend that show. Everyone check that out. As far as Tales from the Backlog goes, man, every time it's the same podcast stuff, right?
Mhm.
Subscribe on your platform of choice. Look in the show notes for my social media, which is on Twitter at TFTBLPod and on Instagram at Tales from the Backlog. And Tales from the Backlog has a Discord server where people can come in and talk about games. It's a good time. Talk about whatever games on the show this week or whatever we're talking about on my other podcast, which is a top three podcast, which every episode is us doing top three lists about various topics, sometimes video games, sometimes not. So please join the Discord if you want to come chat. It's a good time. And yeah, ratings and reviews, those are very helpful, of course, for indie podcasts, for both my shows and for Gaming Together. That would be very nice of you if you feel like you've enjoyed this show. So, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, it's spoiler time for Unsighted. All right, I'm back with Nave talking about spoilers for Unsighted. And let's see, let's kind of run through Alma's backstory. And I didn't mention this in the non-spoiler section, intentionally didn't mention this because I think this was a cool realization to come across. The fact that Alma is gay, and this developer is on their Twitter account. They're proudly an LGBTQ plus developer. So makes sense that they put it in the game, but I didn't mention it because number one, it's a kind of thing you learn throughout the course of the game. And number two, the game doesn't make a big deal about this. It's just the way it is. And I thought that was cool. So learning about Alma's backstory is the war with the humans was super devastating. Alma was kind of created as this like ultimate warrior type, created to be the best version of all the other robots.
Mm.
But she was very badly injured during a fight. And she was romantically involved with this other warrior named Raquel, who you'll come across throughout the game. And throughout the game, Alma is slowly remembering this stuff, including her relationship with Raquel. She knows throughout the game that she needs to go find Raquel, but isn't sure why. So this is kind of part of your motivation. At some point in the game, you can find Raquel's axe, and that felt like a cool moment to me. And it was like, I need to return this or maybe even use this. Did you ever find that axe or even use it?
I ran into that area. I saw Raquel's axe. I got killed by the monster, and I was like, "Well, I guess that axe is gone." And then
Oh,
I went back and I killed the monster, but I don't know if I got the axe or not.
okay,
But at that point, I was like I was playing my Spider-Man fantasy at that point. I like completely forgotten that the axe was in that area.
right. So I got the axe, and you don't get anything. I think at the end, Alma, when you find Raquel, Alma's like, "Hey, I found your axe," and Raquel's like, "Oh, cool, thank you. Uh, did you use it?" And Alma's like, I tried or whatever." And Raquel's like, "You'll never be as good as me, with that axe." They had a little friendly banter in some of those flashbacks. Um, so there was a little bit of payoff for bringing that in, but it's not like a key, item or anything like that. And I wasn't using axes, so I never used it. Anyway, what I thought was cool about the story is finding out what happened to the humans. Because you, at the beginning of the game, they tell you these eldritch monsters that are coming at you, these alien monsters were sent by the humans to fight the robots. And that's what you know throughout the course of the game. And then later, you find these kind of logs in the last level that say that those are the humans. The humans turned into those monsters. They're trying to use the anima to like cause help them live forever. Sorry. But they they were doing these tests, and obviously like things went super wrong with the tests, but
Mm,
some humans, as this happens with all these stories, right, where the mad scientists are like,
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, this horrible thing happened to these patients. Well, I guess I just need to change it a little bit. It'll definitely work next time." Right.
And then you Cronenberg the world.
Yeah, and so all of those monsters that you find out, those big black and green super monsters, those are the humans. And that revelation was super cool to me. Like that was one of the moments that like brought me back into the story where I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I maybe I should have seen that coming, but I definitely didn't."
I don't know how you would see that coming. I'm not sure. So it was very interesting to me because I didn't even know that there was. I had already checked out by the time they were talking about the humans sent these things to attack us. I just thought they were like aliens. I'm like, there's some
Mhm.
alien dudes fighting us and stuff. But by the time I got to the end, I was like reading logs all of a sudden again. Because when you're in dungeons, sometimes you'll read a log and it's like, how are we going to solve this mystery, gang? We need to activate this elevator. And I'm just like, I've activated 100 elevators. I just need to go get the power source and just it's a block. I push it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so
It's a video game.
but as I was climbing the tower, I was like, clearly, they're not going to do that here, right? Yeah. So and yeah, it was an exposition dump, which in one of the flashbacks, one of the characters does specifically say sorry for the like it's like I'm paraphrasing now, but it's like sorry for the lore dump. You know what I mean? Like after
Mhm.
they talked for like a while. But
Yeah.
I think you know what I'm talking about, the part. Oh, we're in spoiler territory. Oh, it was Raphael. I forgot we're in spoiler territory now.
Yeah, this is spoiler time now, so anything goes. So, yeah, you are basically kind of fighting through those monsters that the humans became, and that's the part at the end of the game that was super fucking cool. And I hope this is what you were alluding to too, because they tell you when you get all 5 of those shards and you form the ultimate weapon, then they tell you every one of those big alien monsters that you kill will upgrade the sword by 1.
What a fucking way to get you to run around the map one more
Right.
time for a victory lap.
I forget, I should have taken a screenshot, but I swear my thing was at least plus like 25 or something like that by the end of the game, plus 30. Because
Mm.
I took out all the frustration I had from like the whole maybe 6 hours up until that point. I went through the map and I slaughtered all of these things there were a couple that were behind doors where I was like, I'm not going to find a way behind that door. Fuck that. But everything that was like readily and easily available, I slaughtered all of them and it felt great because it was that final, like, I am basically untouchable now. I have all the movement upgrades too, so I'm flying across the map and I'm destroying these things, and it felt awesome.
Oh, it's so good. I definitely like you do not underestimate Nave's capacity for spite and hatred. I hunted down each and every one of them. No matter
Yeah.
how annoying it was to get back to them, I went around the entirety of the map until all of the game puts a little gross little green eyeball on every little spot that they are in. It doesn't
Hmm.
hide them. It tells you where they're at, even if it's in a spot you've never been to. So I went and I found like there was some I went and found and hunted down, and I think the act. So I'm assuming you get the sword, right?
Yep. I got the sword.
The yang to my yin. I was
Yep.
the axe clear. I had to go axe. I was even more influenced once I realized that the love story between them. I was like axe. I have to be the axe now,
Oh, right.
you
Yeah.
know, because I thought she was dead. I'm gonna be honest. I thought she was dead, but I was like, oh, she's either dead or I kill her. And I was like, even then, I have to carry on because I have to be better than her, right? Because that's the whole thing. So I'm gonna be another axe person. I can't carry the sword, but I don't know. That's my own little mental gymnastics. But yeah, the fact that you upgrade every single time you kill one is very very satisfying.
It's really cool too because so many games are like, they are so precious about their power curve. You know, they don't want you to be overpowered when you fight the final boss. So many games are
Mm,
like this. And Unsighted was like, nope, this is your time. Power yourself up and you can go. Like, I wrecked the final boss because I was so powered up from killing these. And you fight a lot of them in the last level too. So
yeah.
like by the time I got to the final boss, I destroyed the final boss because I was so overpowered. And that's cool. Like I said, like so many games are like, we want the final boss to be this big challenge, this big struggle. And Unsighted's like, no, you powered up. You earned this. You went out, you did the work to power yourself up. So you earned this. Kick the shit out of the final boss. Enjoy it. Like you are this ultimate warrior now. And it felt like really good to be basically untouchable, as far as your stamina will take you.
Oh, and when you have the axe and no stamina upgrades, that is
Yeah.
not very far.
But I'm sure you're
You
doing
hit
a
them
ton of
once
damage
and
with
then
each.
you run away. Yeah, you did a ton of damage for sure. I still played it safe. I was playing I had the same once I had that triple grenade launcher, it was my baby still. So I would one hit jump away, bang 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 reload, wait for my moment to strike again.
Yeah, and with Raquel, I definitely got the feeling that Raquel was going to be the final boss. As soon as you started getting in the last level, you get these kind of lore dumps that Raquel was captured, and then you get like some notes about how Raquel's being experimented on, and Raquel's this
Yeah.
rebellious prisoner and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, she's going to be the final boss, like 100%. Um, and she kind of is, not totally, but kind of. Um, as far as I remember, I didn't write this down and I already forgot. But
It's very ambiguous for sure because like whenever you run into her, you don't fight her i- if I'm
but
remembering
she's there,
correctly.
and
So
she's like,
she's like resummoning all of the boss. It's like a boss rush kind of scenario where at
yeah,
first you fight one boss at a time and they just keep transforming between like Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat 1, but like, he just keeps Shang Tsunging between a bunch of different bosses and then you're fighting two bosses at once, Ornstein and Smog style. I'm sorry listeners, but I speak exclusively in references. So like I can
yeah.
only refer to one thing to another. I have no
I was
original
gonna
thought.
say this is a like shattering the record for most Mortal Kombat references in one podcast.
How many Oh, was it a bunch? Oh, I'm
No, it's
sorry.
the only. No, this is the only one I think.
I definitely get overheard earlier because of the hook shot.
Oh yeah, this is like number 3 or 4, I'm sure, of Mortal Kombat references. But I appreciate it because I also live and speak in movie references and game comparisons and stuff like that. So I'm with you, man. Um, that final boss was, like I said, I crushed it because I was
Hmm.
kind of like, I went above what I think the developers expected you to do when you're powering up the sword. I basically,
Yeah.
let's say that they put 20 of those monsters on your map. I killed at least like 15 of them. Like I really went on the warpath.
There's at least 30. I think I was
Okay.
plus 33 when I went into that building.
Yeah.
I was like, I was expecting it to cap at a like even number. I remember
Same.
specifically,
Yeah.
and it didn't. And I was like, weird.
No, they're just like, "Hey man, power yourself up like as much as you want." And I really respect them for that because again, so many game developers feel like they're so precious about their, you know, the intended level of challenge and Unsighted was very much like, "Nope, destroy the final boss if you're willing to power yourself up that much. Do it. We don't care." So that was cool.
I really, really enjoyed how before you started the final boss fight and you talked to, oh shit, I just forgot. I forgot her name all of a sudden off the top of my head. What was her name?
Raquel?
Raquel. God, sorry. I'm so bad with names. Whenever you talk to Raquel, she's multiple times referring to how like she's like it's already done, like this is it's terrible what's already happened, like you shouldn't be involved. And then whenever you finish the boss fight, she's like, I've done so many horrible things, and it's just left like that, and you're just like,
Mhm.
what happened, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the ending of the game is like, we're gonna go to another city, and I'm just like, this is oh, okay, all right, I like this.
They kind of decide like, this place is finished, but we're going to go someplace else and Raquel and Alma are going to live together, try to live peacefully, not make the same mistakes that the humans made, stuff like that. It's a not exactly breaking new ground on like an ending
Mhm.
and a setting like this, but I did think it was really sweet, like that. And one thing that was weird, I want to know how you feel about this. After you beat the game, anima becomes plentiful again, kind of spreads through
Yeah.
the air, and it revives all of the NPCs that went unsighted. It brings them back to their like conscious form.
I noticed that. Look, well, this was what was weird for me is that I so at the end of the game, you're standing near, like, all the characters are standing near graves, and they're like, the doctor's dead. That's sad. And then, because I remember reading, I was like, oh, everyone's not unsighted no more. They fixed it, and I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. I guess that kind of negates all of the tension now. I didn't know that. If I knew that, I wouldn't have cared the whole time, which would
Right.
completely negate all of it. But so I'm glad I didn't know. But at the end, they were like, what's her name, Olga, the mechanic. They're like, I
Yeah.
can't believe Olga died, and I was like, what? I never went and killed her. Like, I as soon as she went unsighted, I was like, okay, well, that's a wrap. She's
Ah,
just gone. So I never went and killed her. But they were like, Olga's dead. I wish she was here to see this. And I was like, why did Olga die? Like, everyone in my game went unsighted. It was like, why did Olga only die? So I was very curious about that. But
that's
that might have
that's
been a
weird.
bug. But also, Olga's shop is right above, what's her name? The one-armed, android.
Yeah, I
The
can't
one
remember
that
the
wakes
name,
you
but
up.
yeah, I know what you mean.
So she's the one that's always kickboxing and the but yeah,
Yeah.
so, she lives underneath where Olga is, her workshop is. So maybe that's the lores that she killed him. Because what you were saying, I didn't even know you could go and back and kill the unsighted robots. I didn't know that at all. So it's very interesting because the one you said, the guy who the swordsman, he lives by himself in that one dojo. So you could
Right.
think that maybe they just kind of quarantined the area off because you can see everyone's time. So it's not unreasonable to think that everyone else can see everyone's time,
Right.
right? So it's like
Mhm.
maybe they knew he was going inside it. He's like, I'm locking the door, don't come in. And then you just come in knowing he's unsighted and he's crazy, and then you can fight him to death. But that's
Yeah.
that kind of makes it a little bit more dark.
It does, and so, like, I didn't kill all of the unsighted NPCs. There are some that just, like, disappear and I never saw them again, but there were a couple where I was curious, like, okay, I know that this, dojo master went unsighted. I'm gonna go into the dojo and see what it happens, and then he attacks me and I kill him. And I did the same for about 5 or 6 other NPCs that went unsighted. So at the end, when it's like, oh, the anima brings them all back to their, conscious thinking state, I was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have maybe I shouldn't have hunted down all the unsighted NPCs because I thought it was gonna be like a, I was doing the right thing, like putting them out of their misery. I'm very pro, like, if someone went feral, or in another game, if someone's like,
Yeah.
horribly injured or something, I'm always like, put them out of their misery. So I was doing the same thing in this game. But then at the end, when they were like, oh yeah, it brings everyone back to their conscious state, I was like, oops, yeah, kind of killed all them. Sorry,
I
you
would have
know?
felt I would probably would have felt very negative if I went around doing, because I didn't even have that, like, I didn't have that mental connection. I was like, as soon as they were like they're unsighted, I didn't even have the curiosity to go and check on them. I don't know why. I was just like, oh, they're gone. So I just assumed they just wandered off into the wilderness or something to
Right,
die. Like I don't know. It's like that's interesting because, yeah, like in like The Walking Dead, Telltale's The Walking Dead, people, if someone got bit, I'm like, kill that guy. You're dead.
right.
Sorry, dude. If they
Yeah,
happen to me, shoot me, please. I don't want to kill you guys. You know what I mean?
right.
I have no remorse. If I'm bitten, then I'm done. But it's like, yeah, that is very. It feels like a little bit of a sting. I don't
To
know.
be f to be clear, I like this.
Oh,
I like this sad, like, I thought I was doing the right thing, but suddenly, maybe it was the right decision at the time, but then something unforeseen happens. Like, I can see seeing this both ways. I personally was like, "Oh, cool. Well, like the shark robot, I never found him and killed him. So he's back. That's cool."
I was genuinely sad when he went. I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
liked
he's
him so
super
much.
cute.
Did you
But
talk to
like,
him before he was about to die?
I don't remember.
So I ran into him and he only had 12 hours left.
Mhm.
Oh, I wonder if everyone has this kind of moment. But in fact, Olga has this kind of moment. Okay, I have a story for both of them now. So
Yeah.
the shark guy, the guy that teaches you how to fish, he all he wants to do is clean up the ocean. Well, I ran into him in one of his fishing holes, and instead of fishing, he was leaning against a tree, and I talked to him, and he's just like, I wish I had enough time to
Yep.
clean the rest of the ocean for the fish. And I was just like, I'm sorry, dude. And I just ran away. Like I didn't even, I just but I didn't even think about it. But Olga wasn't dead yet, but in her last like 3 or 4 hours, I ended up back in her shop because I needed, that was about the time that I was making the master sword. And I didn't
Right.
even think about it, about saving Olga. I forgot. But I made the Master Sword, left, walked away for about 2 minutes, and then she died. And I was like, I was just there, like I was just over there. But yeah, so she left a note that was like, this is how you make the Master Sword. Here's the components. This is how you do it. Just go to my forge. And I was like, okay, cool. And I did it. That's really interesting because she is the only NPC that died in my game. she must have she absolutely must have left and killed herself. Is that
Yeah.
the implication? Because that is
I suppose
dark.
so. If she's the only one that they're kind of like mourning at the end and you didn't actually go kill her, then maybe that is the implication. Yeah.
Listener, I know you can't see me, but I'm like holding my head because
Yeah. Nave's
I'm
having a
feeling
moment right
horrible
now.
all of a sudden. Like, this is terrible.
All the NPCs give you some kind of dialogue where, like, in their final hours, they will say something like, um, I wish I had more time, or hey man, I'm not feeling so hot right now. Like, they all have special dialogue when they're in their last, couple hours. But that's very interesting with Olga. I kept Olga alive because I was like, she's the one who's going to help me make this forge. I got to keep her alive until then. So I did that.
That's so interesting.
It is cool that she leaves a note. Like, it would be really mean if the game was like, hey, you let the person who knows how to make the sword die. Guess we're fucked. It would be mean if the game did that.
The main thing that I thought was, well, for one, I wasn't sharing any of the dust, but the main thing I thought was Olga's not the only blacksmith. There's a second blacksmith
Right.
in the highway. It's the so there is a robot who dies before Olga, but there is a robot that's there whenever you're there the first time who's like hammering away, and it's the same robot. It's like the brother of that robot, and he's over in the highway in
Yeah,
the
that's your
ruins.
like weapon upgrade blacksmith is the little robot
Mhm.
guy.
Yeah, and so I was thinking like, and he has like 400 hours when you meet him, like halfway through the game. So I'm like, that guy's never gonna die. But
Right.
that guy's alive forever. So I'm like, Like every time I saw more than 300 hours, I was like, okay, this guy's alive for infinity and beyond. So I'm like, I'm never having to worry about this person again. But oh, speaking of brothers, the Navi character,
Right.
the
Yeah.
fairy bot. Did you do the side quests for the fairy
I
bot?
did, yeah. I kinda
Oh,
stumbled upon it, like, naturally. I
me
didn't, like, go
too.
out of my way to do it, but I did finish it, yeah.
It's so interesting. So it's like the whole time the fairy bot just kind of vaguely refers to her sister, I think,
Mhm.
was it? And so she's like, I was separated from my sister. I used to have like a workshop and stuff, but yada yada yada. You end up actually stumbling upon the workshop. There's a key code there.
Right.
I just happened to stumble upon it at some point. I don't know when, but I wrote down in my notes. I was like, there was a data pad, I think, or maybe I talked to someone, I can't remember, but I just wrote down the notes. I wrote down the key code, and I have like 8 or 9 key codes on just written on a piece of paper, along with there are multiple puzzles where you have 6 things to hit, and then
Yeah,
it tells you
the
the
dice.
order slowly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just had 1 page dedicated, so it's just a bunch of numbers. It's indecipherable at this point. But yeah, so I had the code for it, and that is I wonder if you open the door and everything, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I wonder what would happen if see, I wish I didn't know the code and I didn't open the door because then you would know what happened and I wouldn't know. I've gotten used to the dynamic at this point
Oh,
where
yeah.
we just had such different experiences in different points, but
Right.
yeah, it's very interesting. There are so many side quests going on that I am slowly convincing myself to replay this game, especially if New Game Plus carries over the weapons, because there is I'm pretty sure a it I if this it's like what is it? It's some guy's gun. What is it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think so, no.
It's like a Russian guy's name's gun, and it's
Oh,
like a if there's a
Chekhov's gun?
Chekhov's gun. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So Chekhov's gun is if in the first act you have a gun on the mantel place, by the third act you should have used it.
Right.
Otherwise, why is it there? Now there is a giant beefy man who I'm curious, is this the guy that you killed with the assassin? The giant beefy man? Because he had like 400 hours left on my game.
I don't think so. I think the person I killed was, like, a random townsperson that, like, just didn't
Oh.
own a shop or anything. Like, I picked them specifically because they had a ton of hours left and they were not a merchant. And I was like, "Sorry, but you have no utility for me. I need your time."
That's so dark. But so there is a very small, dainty, obviously feminine bot, and then there's a giant, like enormous bot that's like, I have to go. There's no one else who's gonna go. I'm gonna go to this place. And then
Right.
the woman's like, no, please don't. And then
Oh,
he's like,
right,
I
the
have to go.
couple.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I have no idea what happens after that. Like I saw that exchange and I was like, that's cool, and I ran off. Like and just onto my
Yeah.
own quest. I am already on a quest.
So I found them and I actually found a couple of those things later in the game. Like one of them is trapped somewhere and you have to let them out. I think it's the big one. And then they go to meet up. And I just like never found where they are because on the contacts list in the menu, it'll tell you their location. But for them, it was just question marks.
Yeah.
And at that point in the game, I was like, I'm not going through this whole game trying to find them. I hope they're happy wherever they're at. I think I completed it to the point where they are going to like reunite, but I never saw what happens when they do. But with the fairy
It's
one,
very interesting.
yeah, I did make it into like the fairy bot lab. I saw I think the creator of the fairies was dead.
Yeah.
And oh, I think I got there too late for the fairy bot's sibling. I think they had died because I got there too late or something like that. Because when or maybe
Oh,
that's
that's
just the
such a
way it
good
is in the
point.
story.
Yeah, I didn't even make that connection. I just thought I was like, "Oh, this is just how the story
It
is."
might
But
be it
I
might
didn't
be,
even
but
consider.
in my head, I thought like either I got there too late because it was very late in the game for me, or it was just like that's the way the story goes. But at the end, your little fairy bot decides it's going to start making other fairy bots to kind of have some more friends and stuff like that. And again, that fairy bot's so cool and so like nice and helpful. Like by the end, I was very much like, yes, I want you to be happy, fairy bot.
You know what's interesting is that there's an achievement in the game for beating the game without rescuing that bot from the rubble.
Ah, that's
For just
mean.
walking past. It's very dark. Yeah. There's a there's a couple dark situations you
Yeah, I
find
was gonna
yourself.
say they've gotten creative with the trophies or the achievements on there. I played on Switch, so I didn't see any actually you get achievement pop-ups on Switch even, but like Switch doesn't
Mhm.
have achievements, so it's you can't go like look at the list. But you do get little pop-ups every time you do
Yeah.
something. So that's kind of cool. I'm like, "Oh, I did something cool."
I think most devs do that because it makes it easier to find, like, it makes it easier to program the trigger points, because as far as I'm aware, to program achievements and trophies, all you have to do is just find a trigger point, and if you made a trigger point to pop up a little icon, that is like
Yeah.
a very obvious trigger, like that is that, that is that, that is that, and then you can just
Yeah.
go down the line for every single platform super easy.
Mhm.
Which is very, because that pops up on the Xbox as well. It would pop up on the Xbox, and then like 30 seconds later, I'd get an achievement.
Okay. And I'm
I'm like,
like
oh,
you.
that's weird.
I love trophies and achievements. I don't go like platinum hunting on PlayStation, but I do love getting trophies. And so that's
Yep.
one of the things where I'm like, I miss it on Switch. I wish Switch had some kind of achievement system because I'm just, my brain is it's very like lizard brain. Like that achievement pops up and
Yeah.
I'm like, good job, Dave. But I love it. I understand that they're meaningless and I still love them.
It's very yata desune. Ah, feel good. But it's like, yeah, I can't help it, man. Even on the PlayStation ecosystem, I get wild about it. Like I killed myself replaying Uncharted 1 and 2 on the hardest difficulty.
Oh my
It was
God.
not it was not a good time, especially
No, I can
1.
imagine.
1 is so,
Yeah.
I hate 1 now. I used to think about it fondly. I hate it.
Until
I
trying to get a
cannot stand.
platinum. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even get the platinum. I just wanted the achievement, or the trophy for it. Hardest difficulty, whatever. But
Oh,
uh,
geez. I play Uncharted games on easy. That's and so, like, I can only imagine how painful those were.
yeah, it's like it's those. So I keep trying. I'm so used to Gears of War. I played so much Gears of War. I'm kind of an Xbox junkie. Our whole podcast is kind of Xbox, aimed. So I mean,
Right.
unfortunately, but I know that's not popular. But in Gears of War, you can do a thing called corner peeking, where you use the camera, you can see around the corner, and then when you aim, you manipulate the camera, the the motion of the camera, so that you can shoot people before they kind of can see you. And
Mhm.
that doesn't work in multiplayer at all. You'll get obliterated. But in single player, it's really helpful on harder difficulties to kind of stay alive, because in cover sometimes you can get shot. But in Uncharted, at any point, if you can see an enemy, then that enemy can see you, and you can get shot. And so
Right.
you're constant, even if your body is completely in cover. This is in all four Uncharted games. It was never fixed. This is always how it is. If your
Mhm.
whole body's behind a wall, if you can see an enemy in the corner because of the camera, the enemy can shoot the camera, and then it hurts you. And on the hardest difficulty, that is the most insane shit. It's so
Yep.
bad.
That is exactly why I play Uncharted games on easy. All 5 of them I played on easy. So,
Highly
well, man,
recommended.
we are, not even talking about Unsighted anymore. So, is there anything else, left in the spoiler section that you wanna chat about before we say goodbye for today?
mm, yeah, I don't think so. I think we covered almost everything. We
Yeah,
we went
I think
pretty
so.
deep. We went really deep on this game.
We got the stuff I wanted to talk about for sure. And there's for a game that is for a genre that definitely doesn't always go into deep kind of like moral choice situations. This game hits a couple of those moments that were definitely worth talking about. So I'm glad that you had a couple of those moments yourself, and I'm glad that we both had some kind of different situations that we can bounce off of each other in this spoiler section, especially at the end when I killed the unsighted NPCs as like a service to society, and you left them alone. And then my decision came back to bite me at the end. And that's a kind of cool thing.
It's really interesting because it kind of like it's an interesting insight into how our brains work a little bit, like
Yeah.
at a very low resolution level. But like it's like you felt you took responsibility for the fact that these characters went unsighted, and I decided that it's not my problem, and I
Yeah,
let them go. And the fact that I was like, it's not my problem, ended up being good because we found the cure to the zombie virus.
exactly.
It's
Right, right.
it wasn't even my intention. I was just like, this person's gonna die. I'm just gonna clean my hands of it. It's not my
Right.
problem.
Whereas everyone's kind of like, "Oh, it's glad that everyone came back to life," and I'm just kind of sitting there like doing like this scared side eye thing, like, "Oh, yeah, it is good that probably maybe shouldn't have killed the blacksmith. Whoops." But yeah. So, Nave, thanks so much for coming on the show. This has been a blast. This has been a good game for us to talk about since we did have some different experiences in some areas. So I've enjoyed talking to you again. Thank you so much for coming on.
It was awesome. Yeah. Especially the differences. That's probably the best. I was not sure how it was going to go, but especially with these wildly different experiences with like even the combat, the
Right.
minutia of like the character interactions. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it's
good
been
stuff.
good for me to see some ways that I thought I really like. I thought this game was this way, and then it turns out it's not because it was not that way for you. So that's a good experience for me too, because I really thought I had this game pegged as something that turns out it's not. So very cool. So, again, everybody who has listened this far, thank you for listening. And if you want to help out Tales from the Backlog, again, subscribe, ratings, and reviews, join the Discord, all of that stuff. Links down in the show notes. And also, last but not least, check out the Gaming Together podcast with Nave and Philip. They are very entertaining. It's a good time listening to the show. And especially for people like me who just have such a hard time finding the time and like the lining up schedules to play games co-op, hearing about co-op experiences and hearing about again, like I just thought it was so cool how you guys did that Pokemon Nuzlocke thing and turned that into a co-op experience. Hearing how you guys do that, it's a really good show. I like it a lot. So everyone check that out and stay tuned. Come back next week for the next game that comes out of the backlog.